Hello, welcome back to our Crypto Spiritual Weekly Energy Update. My name is bryndis, airing from transCODES, the sponsor here of the Crypto Spiritual Weekly, and we will be translating collective energies measured by real people, empaths, and energetically sensitives at transCODES, not by an artificial intelligence or a bot, but by real people, and how this translates into our cryptocurrency sphere. I've just finished the weekly energy update for collective energies, and so if you would like to get more information on how I received this data or the larger context for our overall well-being and our overall sentiment, which is why I believe that it's significant here, then look at the energy update published in the edited version. All right, so really what we're doing is a market watch here based on the human nature, okay, based on the human sentiment. And I think it's worthwhile to point this out, that this is not just a robotic or algorithmic where the data comes from, but it comes from real people and how they translate this. And based on that, we can produce something like that we would call forecasts. I guess, you know, it is a barometer, you know, looking at the conditions, okay, and translated into the crypto market, which is a market that is primarily driven by a large grassroots, a large international community. We can sort of infer that certain reactions will take place based on the collective energies that are going on right now. And the energetic weather conditions, I kind of try to summarize them here in this barometer that you see. And for the first time, I don't know, ever since I've been reporting about these collective energies in conjunction with the crypto market, we're seeing a very, very clear green signal, meaning that not that all prices are going to be green all week. This is not what I'm talking about, but it's how the energies are really sort of playing in now into sort of liberating some of these bottlenecks that we've experienced in the past months. Okay, so this is going to be a really cool week, the week here 4th till 10th of May. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the memes that are playing into the general sentiment. And there's also a knowledge part here. I wanted to talk to you about how to discern ICOs, because it's going to be a really good time now for ICOs. We talk about ICO scam busters, or scam buster tools, better say. And then I'm going to talk about these energy centers that are affected and why I predict these kind of reactions, and also the tips for you to get through this with sort of the best inner navigator and the best choices that you can make. Okay, first of all, the memes, you know, it's kind of cool for me. You know, I'm kind of older and I'm not native English speaking. So for me, a lot of the international memes that are emerging in the crypto scene are very, very interesting from a linguistic point of view. Okay, so we all know the word HODL, and HODL is actually not really an abbreviation for anything. It's really something that actually happened according to the lore. You know, some drunk programmer, you know, early sort of blockchainer said that he's gonna hold, or meant that he was gonna type hold, and he typed HODL, and this is a sort of you know, like this sentiment of like holding on to it with your life. So like, I'm gonna stick with it no matter what. Okay, so this is where the word HODL comes from. And lately, and this is something that I've talked about last week, we heard a lot about FOMO. So I've created tiny little sort of memory cards for you, where you can visualize, you know, what these mean, and also why I'm bringing this up. So FOMO stands for the fear of missing out, and this is something that comes actually from sociology, and it's common that we as a sort of herd animals, okay, perceive pressure when there's something going on in our collective, whatever that is, our clique or our social group, or, you know, Facebook, or in this case the crypto sphere and the crypto communities, that we will have these almost erratic or impulsive type of reactions to things that are happening. So as soon as somebody says, oh my God, you know, this and this cryptocurrency is skyrocketing, I'm getting into it, everybody jumps on the bandwagon. And the FOMO happens kind of like delayed to those that are actually the originators, which means it kind of sets you up to buying high and selling low, because as soon as you realize, you know, that this sort of hype is already over, you know, then you feel like the last one, the left out one, you know, and you sell because now you're afraid that you're making more losses. So it's based on greed. All right, but it's also triggering fear. And this is very important to understand, because when there's times where there's a lot of FOMO going on, like we've had last week, you know, we see a pretty strong volatility. Now, what is sort of the opposite here as sort of crypto spiritual people, right? How do we deal with this? What are things that we can do to counteract this, or that can help us to say not get caught in these waves? Another term is the joy of missing out. And that's basically you going into your center, you know, you deciding, consciously deciding that you want to write this out, that you don't want to be a part of this, okay? And energetically, that's pretty important to know how to do this. This doesn't mean that you are, you know, making bad decisions. It just means that you're listening to your inner feeling. And even though you could make a lot of money here, you know, you're really connecting with this part in you, you know, that just sees this, observes this, and witnesses it without actually feeling the need to get pulled into. This is a good thing to learn, you know. So my tip here for you, my energy tip here for you, is that you really practice this, that you consciously, you know, miss out on hypes when you feel that there's a potentiality that this is a hype, okay? So bear this in mind. If you don't, and this is the part here that is important for us to understand why there has been such a strong volatility, besides, of course, the outer influences that were there, and that is this other side of our herd psychology, and that is that when things are based on fear, you know, then we will interpret, we will contextualize everything that happens into the context of, oh my God, I'm going to lose out. Oh my God, I'm going to lose everything. Oh my God, people are going to make fun of me. Whatever your strongest fear is, and you're going to go into the mood of panic and run. Okay, and panic and run is something that we know what prey animals do, and that literally puts us into that place of becoming prey, okay, of becoming victim of all these sentiment changes that are going on around us. And you know what I said earlier about the joy of missing out, you know, that discipline can help you to not be too affected by it, okay? Otherwise, and this is another meme that, you know, just recently came up here for me. It's called YOYO. Okay, and YOYO is basically, you know, where if you get caught in all this and you're trying to, you know, go with what other people think and what other people do, you know, you will ultimately end up in this place of you are on your own. You will feel separated. You will feel not sort of at the source of things. You will not feel empowered. You'll feel overwhelmed, and you will go really, really low, and that then in return will trigger the fear of loss again, the FOL. Okay, so this may be a little mental here, but I wanted to show you that you know, you have to really find this place within yourself where you know what you're doing this for. You need to know the why. Okay, and it's okay to invest in cryptos to make money. That's okay, but you need to know why you want to make money. Okay, that's why the whole Lambo thing is such a big thing in the crypto world, but it also shows you the conscious level of those, you know, who are going for, you know, sort of this metaphor of richness, okay, which is the Lamborghini. All right, for those of you here who are not really aligned to greed, you know, you need to really find this why in yourself deep down, because that can be your navigator through difficult times, through volatility, through FUD, fear and uncertainty, and through all these sort of movements that you see that you literally don't have an influence about. So it's not about trying to desperately getting into control. It's about calming yourself down enough so that you don't feel like you are a prey animal, so that you don't feel like you're a constant sort of subjugated or subject to, you know, all these outer energies that bombard you. For energetically sensitives and empaths, that's a really, really big discipline to learn, because you will always feel these things come in. And in the history of mankind, this has always led to people, you know, who have precognitive abilities or have, you know, are empaths, you know, to end up not really being able to be proactive, you know, to really just always contextualizing everything based on fear and based on, you know, apocalypse or whatever, you know. So just that you become aware that these mechanisms are there, and the whole month of May is going to be very dynamic. There's going to be lots of energy's emotion, as I called it in the energy update here a few minutes ago. All right, so you need to know how to center yourself, and need to know where you know, that center is, and that has to do with your values, that has to do with your integrity and with your why. Okay. So let's look at a little bit of the what is going on. Oh, by the way, I forgot you guys are here. This is live, yes, and you can ask questions. You can interact with me and let me know where you're from. Australia is here, I see. Ireland is here. Yes, United States is here. Europe is here. Guys, just because the barometer is on green, okay, this doesn't mean that you have to think that everything is going to be great now. No, it just means that there's really conducive, really supportive energies if you know, can stay in your center. Okay, so it will actually also help you to learn this. So it's a kind of like a safe space right now. You can give yourself the space to practice that a little bit. Let's look at sort of the overall market right now and some of the recent news. You know, I've recommended you to watch, you know, other YouTubers that do daily updates and so forth. You know, there's a lot of tools that in the description here. And I've you know, showed you my sources, so it's not really a mystery, you know, where I get those news from. But at this very moment, you know, we're looking at, you know, this consolidation. So the Bitcoin price, and with it, of course, the entire market. We talked about Bitcoin dominance last time. The Bitcoin dominance goes up and down with the sort of the percentage and the shift, you know, between Bitcoin or altcoin investments. So we've seen this back and forth here a little bit last week, but overall really nicely consolidated over the $9,000 mark for Bitcoin, which is usually a good sign. So we're heading towards the $10,000 mark, which is a big psychological mark, and it's you know, to be expected that there's going to be a little bit of resistance. But the overall situation right now has shifted. This happened right around 2 weeks ago, and now we're going to see, or we are seeing, a lot more of these news, like Goldman Sachs, for instance, really jumping into the blockchain now, as far as their employees is concerned, as far as their investments is concerned, and as far as like actually opening up a Bitcoin futures market. We also see a lot of movement, a lot of back and forth here with the regulatory agencies. So the CFTC and the SEC have renewed their commitment to really work together. We've seen a few things that we don't know yet how to interpret. You know, what does it mean? Is Ethereum, is Bitcoin, are those actually currencies, or are those securities? And here's the significance of this, guys. If it is classified as a currency, then there will be other regulations that need to be applied than if it is a security. If it's a security, it would need to be handled like a stock, and therefore, you know, the entire process of, like, say, releasing an ICO and and getting listed, and also the exchanges themselves will have to go through the exact same process as, you know, the stock related investments go through. If it, however, gets classified as a currency, and most of you have been around for a while, so you already know the distinction here. Even though everything is called cryptocurrency, it's not really currencies, okay? So some of these coins, you know, such as Ethereum, you know, I think it's okay to look into this, you know, like what does it actually provide? Ethereum provides an infrastructure and is therefore not really a currency. And yet, in order to use the Ethereum infrastructure, you know, say for an ICO or for the smart contract environment that they offer, you have to pay in ETH. And so it's understandable that there is a little bit of confusion at this very moment, because it's a new form of commodity. And so the classification is going back and forth right now. And like so many other YouTubers before me, it is safe to assume that these regulatory agencies are going to come to a consensus that allows us to be sort of really, you know, clean cut about this in the future. So some of the exchanges are now trying to restructure things, you know, some of the wallets and so forth. They're trying to integrate this. Some of the ICOs have become really conscientious about their ICO process. And so we're also seeing things such as much more emphasis on, like, say, pre-sales, private sales of tokens before they get released onto the exchanges, which, like a year ago, you know, where it was more of a Wild West situation, you know, everybody could just come out on an ICO. And as Ivan on Tech showed us, it takes about 10 minutes to program the smart contract for an ICO. Okay, so all this, of course, you know, will lead to a more stabilized and a less sort of volatile market. Okay, so even though this is a bit annoying right now because things keep going back and forth, but in the long run we can expect you know, something that will help all of us, you know, as investors, as well as developers, as well as you know, employees in this exploding market, or fourth industrial revolution, as I called it last week. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about this ICO process and these different stages and what they are, because last time I mentioned something that I was looking into, not yet into buying perhaps, but, you know, as far as the technology is concerned, because we talked about infrastructures and I talked about HASHGRAPH, and then one of you asked, is HASHGRAPH or isn't this in a private sale right now? And that's correct. So it's not in an ICO stage. If you want to know the ICOs that are coming up, then I would recommend you go on Google, use the tools that I had posted before to get an overview over ongoing and upcoming ICOs, such as ICO drops, for instance, you know, where you can see this all listed, and you can also use this as a research platform. But what is happening is that, you know, new blockchain companies or companies that come up with a product or a concept or an infrastructure, whatever, you know, their technology is, they don't all have to go through an ICO process. Okay, the ICO process is basically the crowdfunding process. If they, like, say, have private investors, then they don't really need to do this. So, you know, this is kind of like the crossover here between venture capital and going public, right? Because if you have enough private investors, then you don't really need to go through this initial coin offering process. You can just offer your coin whenever it's ready, and make your contracts, your deals with the exchanges so that they take you there. And so the pre-sales or the private sales that some coins have moved to now allows them to circumvent, to bypass, you know, this insecurity with the SEC regulations. So if you want to really make sure that you're not violating any future laws, which is a little bit of the problem for businesses right now, because you don't really know yet what, you know, how this is going to be classified and what this is going to mean for your company in future. You may actually, you know, by doing an ICO, violate certain rules in certain countries. You don't know this yet. So in order to prevent this, a private sale is actually a valid thing to do. And HASHGRAPH is one of those companies that come with a very cool technology. This is infrastructure technology. So for those of you who are not coders, that may not be interesting. But a new scaling technology and a new sort of cross-chain communication that will make transactions faster, that will make them more efficient, and that also helps to sort of sort things a bit more so that not all the information has to be carried on the blockchain. Same with HOLOCHAIN. HOLOCHAIN is one of those that you may want to look at. The short form is HOT, and it's very similar. Infrastructure technology here. Same with PCHAIN. That's also something that you want to look at. Okay, personally, when it comes to deciding what kind of ICO you may be interested in investing in, because you see these huge returns of investment possibilities there. I would use these research tools that I've already mentioned to you, but there's also a few things that you can do personally to discern, okay, and I want to send a big thank you to Crypto. It's a YouTuber who has a really cool video called Scam Busters, and I love this because I was working on these discernment tools that we can develop and how to find out what ICOs could be interesting and where, even if they're not rated, even, there's a lot of companies now that do ICO reviews and stuff like that, but I found that doing my own research on certain projects that it still is no guarantee that this is not like a scam or anything. And so here are sort of my culminated tips for you that you can use as discernment tools, whether a company or an ICO is a scam or feels like a scam to you or not. First of all, and this is something that you may not really have on your radar, but if there's a company that has a name that produces a lot of data overlay, I get naturally suspicious, guys. If I cannot Google the company because it's using a word that is so common, or it's using a word where there's a lot of other companies, maybe even in the similar market segment, that already have a big name, then that leads me to believe that this company consciously did this to produce more Google hits on their name without actually hits on themselves. So data overlay is a big red flag for me, guys. I just wanted to let you know. Then, of course, there's always things such as business registration. And so for last year, we did this a lot, where we would actually go and look up, where is this business even registered? When was this registered? Like Crypto said, he's using domain tools, the who is who tool, to find out when was their website registered. I mean, if you are intending to raise hundreds of millions of dollars in crowdfunded ICO money, okay, and you register your website like 2 weeks before the ICO, I don't know about you guys, but this doesn't seem like it's planned. This doesn't seem like, it's really has a good fundament. Another thing is, to really look up the address, to look up the location, and use Google Maps for it. Use the satellite picture for it, to really find out if this is actually a legit address, okay? Because you can get the address in the who's who or in the business registration. So, just do sort of a verification, like a reality check. These may all seem non-brainers, for business people here. But, since there's a lot of noobs coming into the crypto market, you need to understand that there are scams and that there are companies that, you know, just use their technological knowledge, you know, to create websites real quick, to do all this real quick. It's not that hard to produce sort of a white paper and an ICO smart contract, okay? And just because it says that it is an ICO, it says that it is a good technology, doesn't mean it really is. So you do want to look at some of these things, these credibility things. We talked about this in the past. Another thing that I think is really, really cool, and something that has been bothering me on Facebook all along, and that's reverse image search. I don't know about you guys, but I get like roughly 10, 20 new friend requests. And it is so weird, you know, because the majority of them are actually bots, you know, Facebook bots, and you can totally tell this is not a real person. And you know, now after like, I don't know how many years on Facebook, I recognize these pictures. These are the same pictures. So you can use this hunch, so to speak, on ICO websites as well. You can use reverse image search to find out whether this picture that they produced there, like say for showing their team, for showing, you know, like the people that they that represent the company. And it's scary, but a lot actually use fake pictures or slightly modified fake pictures. So that's something that you can do if you don't get a clear signal. Here at Crypto Spiritual, we offer actually a service which is a integrity check on coins, and also business ideas and business contracts. We've been doing this for as long as we're doing business coaching here in conjunction with energy work. And there's one project that I was asked about last week, and you know, I don't want to slam anybody, but you know, I did not get a clearer signal on this. So the website looked okay, but it really did not pass my integrity check. Okay, and so I'm not standing here and saying this is a scam, but I'm letting you know that based on some of these technical search criteria or verification criteria, I did not pass that project. Okay. But, you know, all this being said, you know, not to make you insecure, but to really, you know, reinforce and empower you to find out, like, you know, what is your way of discerning, you know, and how can you make good choices, good conscious choices. And because this is such a good week here next week, where you really want to do a conscious move, okay, it will make you feel better if you know what to go by and not just sort of listen to what other people say. Because if you only listen to what other people say, then you run into FOMO, you run into panic and run, and you run into the yo-yo, you know, where you in the end, you know, feel all left alone or disappointed or betrayed. Okay, so try to really avoid this. Now, what are airdrops? That's a question I've got a few times here in the last week. That's, again, as a process itself, it's a legit thing to do. You know, some smaller coins that don't, say, have the money to do big marketing campaigns before they do the ICO, or, you know, that have already been on the market, like, say, for 2 years, but nobody really cared about cryptos 2 years ago, except for, like, a very, very small community. So what they do is they use a coin drop, which basically means you get free coins from them if you give them your wallet address as a marketing measure. And they kind of use some of that psychology that I talked about earlier, namely, when you have a few coins, and let's say the coin isn't worth much, you know, like less than a cent or whatever, and they give you 10 cents, right? I mean, even if they do this for thousands of people, the total investment of this, you know, compared to some of the other marketing costs that we have in running a business is minimal. But what it does, though, it attaches a person to a coin. And I've noticed this with myself. So when you participate in an airdrop, and you kind of have to find out, you know, in these communities where these airdrops taking place, okay? Sometimes you're lucky and you just get an airdrop because you're using this wallet, you know, or this exchange. But for the most part, you know, it's something that you can find out on Twitter, you know, on Telegram, you know, sort of what current airdrops are going on. However, remember, any legit airdrop will never ask you to send anything to them, like as in you have to pay a little bit to get more. This would be a huge red flag, or almost like a no-go, immediate no-go for me. So an airdrop is something where You're receiving free coins, small amount, for the purpose of attaching you to this currency, and maybe, you know, feeling motivated to check this out a bit more, do a little more research. It's like a TV commercial for them, you know, just translated into new technology. But you should never have to pay anything for it, or to send a private key, or to send, you know, whatever first in order to get this. All right, just to stay clear on this. Yes, and HOLOCHAIN is out of ICO now, and I don't know if it's on an exchange already. Gerald, if you know this, let us know. But that was the ICO that I have been watching here for a while. Then let's look at Telegram, the Telegram ICO TON. They're actually going to have 2 ICOs, or planned ICOs. They've actually now officially raised $1.7 billion in the private sale, in the private pre-ICO state, and have now pulled the ICO, not going through the actual ICO process anymore, not running into any of these issues. They've completely funded themselves with the private sale. Too bad if you didn't get into this. How can you get into a private sale? That's a good question as well. Usually you have to have a certain standing as far as like the income that you have here in the States. I think it's $2,100 that you have to make, and you have to have you know, a certain network of people, or, you know, a certain standing with the investment or broker. So it's really just suitable for the people with more money to get into the private sales. All right, so that's a bit sad, but personally, I actually have a really good feeling about this Telegram product. You know, Telegram is of course out there as far as very popular in the cryptocurrency sphere as a communication, you know, sort of like Skype a little bit, but more in groups, and you can, it's more decentralized. We don't know yet what they're going to do with those $1.7 billion, but I have a good feeling about this, so let's keep observing this, all right? Okay, so Gerald is texting us here that HOLOCHAIN is listed on IDEX. Personally, I have never used IDEX, so I can't tell you if this is a good exchange or not. Yeah, so what about all these other ICOs that are in the upcoming stage now? Since I said this will be a good time for ICOs, you know, if you got your DIRE, you know, do your own research procedure down, and you know what your red flags are, and you know how to sort of make yourselves immune from, you know, FOMO, then, you know, use these tools that show upcoming ICO, listen to YouTubers that talk a lot about ICOs, and get your sort of mental and your gut feeling together. Okay, ask your heart, does this feel right? And there are a few ICOs that I've looked at here in the last couple of days. One is NOS. That's it could be potentially really huge. It's basically an operating system for NEO-based infrastructures, you know, that can be used on, you know, tablets, phones, or smartphones. So that could be very interesting, because it opens up a whole new way of programming apps for us as consumers. QUARKCHAIN is interesting. I've talked about this before. PCHAIN, ROOTSTOCK, and HASHGRAPH. Those are the ones that I have been doing some research on, and that were also recommended by Superman. You know, he's had a really good track record with some of these. So, you know, do your research, you know, get the opinion from several YouTubers, from several communities, okay, and then ask your heart. Personally, and I'm not a financial advisor, and you know this is no financial advice, I have loaded up on LITECOIN on Sunday, simply out of a hunch. No, this is not a hunch, because, you know, I've been knowing, you know, and feeling that LITECOIN is going to be a really big player here in the future, and I've talked about this in the past a lot. But, you know, with this incoming energy, with this incoming renewal energy, I really felt a shift there. So there's a foundation there why I believe this, but there's also the feeling that came in. And in that moment where both of them came together, okay, the analytical mind and my feeling, that's when I made a conscious move. And this is what I would recommend you guys to do now as well. For, things seem relatively settled. Of course, there can be corrections. If you're not going into FOMO, then you're not going into this panic and run. Okay, so you can look at the sideways movement or the little bit of volatility there. When your gut feeling tells you sell, cash out, realize your profits, realize your losses, then do it. Listen to it. Okay, there will never be the even if you were a professional crypto day trader, the optimal move. Make a conscious move instead. All right, the energy centers here affected this next week, and why? I have been contextualizing everything the way I've been contextualizing it here. Is our second chakra. That's the part on us that brings in life force and new impulses. So, but it's also the part in us that can bring, sort of this impulsive reaction or reactivity to things like fear, And so, while this is a good, new start and a good shift, out of this like, oh my God, I don't want to hear anything about cryptos. This is all scam. This is all a bubble, into like, oh, this is, really interesting. But, when there's a lot of fear involved, then, you need to discipline your energy a little bit to not go sort of with what the herd does. Okay. And here, my tip is that you learn from your past reactivity, and you learn, sort of from knowing yourself, knowing your energies. If you are buying something, just because you're following sort of what the others do, then you will never be able to own it, and that will create this feeling of powerlessness in you. Okay, this is not a good condition. All right, it's much better. And this is the other influence. There's two more influences here on our energy centers. One is the barrier between our third and our fourth chakra, between our ego and our heart, and that is where this merger, this fusion of the mental mind and your heart has to come together. And when I talk about heart, energetically, I'm not talking about your emotions. That is much lower. I'm talking about your gut feeling. I'm talking about your intuition. And this is now coming together in this next week with your seventh chakra, with the larger vision, with, the huge potential that is out there that many of us empaths and energetically sensitives have been feeling here for a while about the cryptos. And to really, create a good foundation here with your heart, with your mind, and bringing all this together. That is what allows you to make a conscious move and to own your move. And then you don't need to feel, like prey. You don't need to be a predator either. You can just feel like, okay, I'm navigating in this. I'm going with this. All right. And I'm enjoying the process. Okay. So don't be afraid of the unknown, conquer your ego's tendency, to go either into greed or the fear of the unknown, all right, and know, what you're in here for. And if you are not like a techie expert, then, and you don't want to do all this research, then stick with the big four, the big five, and just ask yourself, which one you can relate to better, which one you can own, when you buy it, because that's going to give you, the power to hodl, through times where there's a strong or high volatility. Okay, guys. Well, thank you for listening. I hope that you've learned something here today. If you have any questions, then please let me know. I'm reading the chat here. I'm seeing your comments, guys. Yeah, if you would like to know a little more about Crypto Staffer, how we actually help young programmers and people who want to get into the crypto industry, how we help them to find jobs, then please visit cryptostaffer.com. And if you would like to know more about energy work, then just go to transcodes.com and you will see me at all these pages, because this is how I have manifested, all my interests in different areas of my professional career. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you again. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.